Remember that time in 2016 when Hillary Clinton lost the electoral college vote, not the popular vote, but the electoral college vote, and she refused to concede. And not only did she refuse to concede, but she then started telling everybody that the election was rigged, that it was a fraud, that dead people were voting en masse, and that people were voting twice and there was just horrible voter fraud. And she filed 27 lawsuits in all these states to try to convince judges across the land that there was mass fraud in the election. And then when that didn't work, she started inviting all of the state legislators who were going to be responsible for validating the vote count to her house and having meetings with them. And then after that, she sent them on a really nice night in a hotel that she and Bill Clinton owned, and an all expense paid room with Dom Perignon and $250 bottles of champagne. Remember when she did all that to try to steal the election? Of course you don't, because it didn't happen. Because it has never happened. There has never been a candidate, or especially a president, who has done more to undermine democracy and try to steal an election than Donald Trump has done in 17 days. Even Nixon had some kind of either moral compass or shame that when he was caught, when the tapes came out, he resigned. Richard Nixon used to be like the epitome of the fraudulent politician. And even he resigned when he was caught. And now we have a president who's refusing to leave. Well, not yet. But we have a president who is refusing to believe, who is refusing to concede, despite his opponent winning by more than 6 million votes. Joe Biden has more votes, up to 80 million, than any candidate in the history of any election in the United States. And he has as many electoral college votes as Donald Trump had in 2016. And rather than doing what every president, every candidate has done, except for two throughout history, instead of conceding, instead of doing what's right and what's moral and what's tradition, he's throwing a temper tantrum like a spoiled little brat and trying to not only buy the election through lawsuits, basically. He's got the money because he's raising it, because his donors are giving him money to fight these lawsuits, to claim victory that isn't his, to steal an election. He's choosing to ignore the truth. What else is new, right? He's ignoring facts. And everybody, I was going to say everybody who's watching me knows that, but that's not true. I'm still seeing comments on my videos. People are still saying that media doesn't call elections, the states have to call elections, and that's true. But let me talk about the steps that Donald Trump is taking to try to steal the election. It's called a constitutional coup. He hasn't brought in a militia yet to try to overthrow the United States government yet. But what he's doing is he's using tools and loopholes in our Constitution to try to steal your vote away from you, or my vote away from you. If you're a Trump supporter, can you imagine if Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton had acted this way? I just don't understand how people are justifying the behavior of an authoritarian who is desperately trying to hold on to power. Let's talk about how he's doing that. Let's talk about the facts behind how Donald Trump is trying to steal the election. 16 days ago, he lost the election. The night of the election, we hadn't had all of the mail-in ballots counted, so it took a couple of days for everything to get counted to get clear evidence that the election was going toward Joe Biden. What happened, and I talked about this in other videos, what happened is it became clear mathematically and statistically that even with recounts and the historical look at recounts maybe changing a few hundred votes, maybe changing 1,000 votes, the margins were so great. Joe Biden had won by so much that even if Donald Trump challenged the counts in those states, there is no way it would have been overturned to change the winner of those states. That's a fact. That is the truth. That is why the media felt safe in calling the election for Joe Biden. It was mathematically impossible, no matter what, for Donald Trump to win where Joe Biden had won. Donald Trump has been planting the seed since 2016, and you got to wonder, we all wondered in 2016, why is he claiming the election is rigged? Even after he won, he was claiming election rigging, and he was claiming voter fraud. And even though he won, he was saying that Hillary Clinton busting illegal immigrants to vote for her. You gotta wonder now, why 4 years ago was he planting the seed even after he won of voter fraud? And that's been a message he's been using since he's been in office, that there was widespread voter fraud. And a lot of us were like scratching our heads saying, why would a candidate who won still be insisting there was voter fraud? Here we are. This is why. Because he's already planted the seed in your head, in a lot of people's heads, that the fraud that the election back then was rigged. He just happened to win, but it was rigged. Hillary Clinton shouldn't have won the popular vote. The only reason she won the popular vote is because of voter fraud. He planted that seed then, because the only thing he's really good at is marketing. He has all his life, he's manipulated the media to get them to report him in the way he wants to be seen. It's not true. It's not real. There's endless stories and reports that have been done since then showing that he is a master manipulator of the media. He knows how to get the media to present him the way he wants to be presented. So as a narcissist and someone who is mentally unwell, he has learned that he can manipulate, he can mold how the country sees him by using the media. And he knows repetition works. Marketing 101, repetition works. The more you repeat a message, it can be false. And I think I've told the story before think about infomercials that you see late at night. I've told this story, my own personal story, about infomercials late at night. The first couple times you see an infomercial for a widget, you think, that thing is stupid. Who needs that? The 1,000th time you see it, you're like, okay, yeah, I could see, maybe I could use that. Well, Donald Trump is the master of the late night infomercial. He knows that if you say something enough times, people will start to believe it. It's just human nature. I think it's probably psychological. And that's what he's done. He has led some people to believe, just by sheer repetition, that there is in fact voter fraud, when in fact there has been zero evidence of widespread voter fraud. There have been a few instances, sure, and I'll put a link to the video that I did talking about voter fraud. It's like 0.00025%. There's no voter fraud. And in fact, the leader of the Homeland Security just came out recently and said, the guy who runs Homeland Security came out and said, this is the safest election there has ever been in American history. We were prepared. We knew that there was going to be Russian interference. So Homeland Security was able to ramp up their security, and it was the safest election in history. And how did Trump react to that news by the leader of Homeland Security? He fired him. He fired him. This department, this Homeland Security agency, their sole purpose was to make sure our democracy stays intact through fair and safe elections. They did their job. And then they bragged about it. We did a great job. There is no voter fraud. And Donald Trump fires him. Yeah, that's the administration that millions of people, 70 million people, are still supporting. A guy who fires a guy for doing his job well because it doesn't align with his marketing message, his message over and over that there's voter fraud. again, repeat something enough times and people believe it, whether it's true or not. The truth, he had to quell. He had to get rid of the truth. And so he fired the guy. So yeah, we've had the safest election ever. There is no voter fraud. But what does Donald Trump do? Because he can't let go of power, he insists there is voter fraud. He and his attorneys have filed at least 28 court cases against different states to try to prove voter fraud. So while his attorneys and Giuliani, bleeding head Giuliani, comes out and says voter fraud, he tells the public, he tells his audience, he tells the people who follow him, he tells the right-wing news media, yeah, there's fraud, yeah, there's fraud. We filed all these lawsuits because we believe there's fraud. But when they got in front of the judge, rather than commit perjury, they admitted in front of the judges that they have no evidence of widespread voter fraud. Let me repeat that. Trump's lawyers in court under oath said they have no evidence of widespread voter fraud. But they came out of the courthouse and told you something different. How can that be justified? How can you justify that? If they believed it, if it was true, they would be saying the same thing in court that they're saying in the public eye. But the media marketing isn't under oath. They can say whatever they want, and they do. And millions of Americans believe it. Millions of Americans believe these lies despite the evidence. I'm going to put sources to everything I'm talking about in the video description. I have sources. It's not fake news that they went into court and said they don't have any evidence. That is actual, real news, and I will put links below with that information. They lost all but one of their lawsuits, and the one that they did win was in Pennsylvania, and it was silly. It wasn't, oh yes, we won, there's voter fraud. It was something about putting aside questionable ballots for a few extra days so that they could verify the signatures or something like that. I mean, it wasn't even a big deal. It was just, a tiny little win. Trump has lost 27 lawsuits in this election, despite the fact that these might even be going to many of the judges that he appointed. You know how many judges he has appointed? We'll maybe talk about that another day. His administration and Mitch McConnell have rushed through so many judges, and he's still losing. Thank goodness. What are these lawsuits for? The lawsuits are really meant to stop or delay certification of the votes, and they failed. They failed greatly. So what's he doing now? He's using intimidation, maybe bribery. I don't know. He had Mission Republicans at the White House yesterday, and then they were seen at Trump Hotel partying it up with $250 bottles of Dom Perignon or $450 bottles. Does that sound right to you? I remember when, who was it? Bill Clinton ran into the secretary of somebody at the airport. That was one of the things that may have cost Hillary the election. And boy, people just had a fit about that. But now we have Republican lawmakers of Michigan who on Monday are going to be voting whether or not to certify the votes. Not only had a meeting with Trump yesterday, which is highly unorthodox and not right. Can you imagine if Hillary Clinton had done, I just can't even imagine, if Hillary Clinton had been in the same room with people who are going to be deciding whether or not a state's votes should be certified. Donald Trump had them in the White House and then put them up. We don't know. We don't even know. But they were at Trump Hotel drinking very expensive champagne. There is nothing. I don't know how it could be any more obvious. He's stealing the election right out from under. He's trying to steal the election right out from under our eyes. He's not even trying to hide it. That's how much this president has gotten away with. The Senate wouldn't. Well, he was impeached. The House impeached him, but the Senate wouldn't try him. The Senate wouldn't kick him out of office. He's really, literally been getting away with murder in the case of 250,000 dead Americans from COVID from his ineptitude. By the way, did you know that today, or was it yesterday? I think it was today, rather than go to a COVID-19 Zoom meeting on what to do about bringing in COVID-19, rather than being in that meeting, he went to the golf course. So when people say it's not Trump's fault that so many people are dead from COVID, remember that. Rather than going to a strategic meeting to try to figure out what to do to put a plan in place to save American lives, he golfed. That's your president. So it didn't work. The lawsuits didn't work. What he's trying to do is either bribe or blackmail or coerce, or even in some cases intimidate people who are going to be in charge of certifying the votes. If you want to know how the Electoral College works, I did a video on it. I'll put a link up here. I'm not going to talk about that right now. It's too much to get into. But basically, most states have popular vote. Whoever wins the popular vote in that state gets a slate of electors from that candidate's party, and then they choose the winner. They vote for the person who won the popular vote. I just wanted to give you a little bit more detail on this. Once the electors place their votes based on the popular vote, it then goes to state legislatures to certify the votes. So first the electors vote for the candidate who won the popular vote, then the electors' votes go to state legislature for the state legislator to certify the vote. That's when it becomes official. That is when the state is officially called for the winning candidate, and that's what Trump is now trying to stop. And what he's been doing is calling out some of the people, the electors and the counters, and they've received death threats and intimidation. And this is the president of the United States trying to intimidate people who are going to be certifying your vote. Your vote. This is our vote. This is our choice. This isn't Trump's choice. It's not electors. It's not state legislatures. It's not Secretary of States. This is our vote. This is our vote. This is how the democracy works. And Trump's trying to take that away. We'll see on Monday what Michigan does. The good news is everything that I have read, and I will put some sources below. I don't know if you saw Joe Biden's attorney did a press conference the other day talking about everything that Trump is doing and why it's going to fail. While the Trump administration has exposed the loopholes, the cracks, the Grand Canyon cracks in our Constitution and our checks and balances, there are still things hanging on by a thread. And all of the constitutional scholars and legal experts are saying he's going to fail. I'm trying to hold on to that hope. That's where I have to live right now. Although some people say that living in hope can be dangerous too, and that we should just be living in the middle and not hoping and not being afraid, but just kind of staying in the middle and just saying, oh, well, we'll see what happens. I'm having a really hard time doing that. How about you? That's why I wanted to shoot this video. I wanted to talk to you about what's been going on, what Trump is doing. He's still in touch with all of the Republican lawmakers in states that Biden won, trying to get them to not certify the vote. That's his last hope right now. All of the lawsuits have failed in which he was trying to prove voter fraud. They have failed, and now he's trying to just intimidate, blackmail, bribe, who knows, the Republican lawmakers into not allowing the vote to be certified. And like I said, everything that I've read from constitutional scholars and lawyers saying that he's not going to succeed at this, that basically in some cases what he's doing, for the states to not do their job, for the state legislators and the electors to not do their job, it would basically be like playing a game of Scrabble. And everybody knows the rules to Scrabble, right? So you all agree on the rules, you agree on use of the dictionary or whatever. You play a game of Scrabble with your brother, right? At the end of that game, you have lost that to your brother. And so then you go back and say, and try to change the rules. Well, I would have won if I was allowed to use, any one-letter words, or I would have won if I was allowed to use a different dictionary. So that's basically what Trump is trying to do and what the Republican legislators would have to do. They'd basically have to go back and change the rules, the Constitution in some cases of their states. They would have to go back and change the rules that were made before the game was played. Does that make sense? And so that's why a lot of constitutional scholars and lawyers are think it's just not going to happen. You can't retroactively change rules for a game that's already been played. You just can't do that. And that's where we're at. That's where we're at. Trump is still trying to. He's gonna. I see a desperate man. There, you gotta wonder, and those of us who aren't Trump supporters have wondered this for a long time. What is it? What's going on? Is it the debt that is going to come due in the next 4 years that he's afraid of, who he's going to owe that money to, and what the repercussions of that? Or is he really afraid he's going to go to jail when he gets out of office because of all the bad things he's done? And once we get a new administration in there who's able to peek under the covers and start seeing things that are classified, that he is classified, that he's not allowing anyone to see. So these are the last flailings, hopefully, of a desperate man trying to do anything. Maybe he's also just trying to show Putin that he's doing everything in his power. I don't know. You gotta wonder. You gotta wonder. It's amazing and sad that this is America in 2020. I hope that helps you. I'm going to put links to the press conference from Biden's lawyer, Bauer. I think it was Bob Bauer. Great. It was 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. It was really, really good. And I'll put links to a couple other articles that say, especially in Michigan, how he's going to fail even in Michigan, even if he was able to change or to influence the Republican legislators that he invited to the White House and had a fancy night at Trump Hotel. Even if he was able to sway them, they will not be able to get away with it, is what I'm reading. So I'll put the links to that below. All right, my first, as I see it, Trump is still losing. Trump will continue to lose. Joe Biden will be our president, as he should be, because we, the people, elected him on January 21st. January 20th, right? 2021. Thank you all so much. Stay tuned. I'm looking forward to this new channel. You never know when I might just be inspired to post something. So I'll see you soon. Be sure to subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time. Bye.